What up, and welcome to another episode of The Garbage Bin. I'm Mike. With me is James. This is the DPT. Roll the intro.
We're back.
Yeah, we roll the intro in real time, so we actually roll it as we're recording.
Of course we do.
So once again, this time we have 3 films that we intended to review. Here we are to talk about them. First up, we have The Brides of Blood.
Which I didn't know. Of course I know now, but this is a trilogy.
It is a trilogy of films. We have them all, and hopefully we will watch them all at some point. But it was hard to get through this one.
Yes.
So it might take us some time to get through the other 2.
But you explained to me, I think you Googled it and found out that it was a trilogy, and we
It is
happened
a
to
trilogy.
find the other 2 the same day.
Yes. Yes, we found all of them in a place that didn't have a ton of DVDs.
Yeah, it was it's weird. Yeah.
So it was strange that they had all 3 films in this trilogy. But this was the first in the series, The Brides of Blood. It was made, I want to say, in 1964?
Yeah, early 60s. And I was shocked that there were boobs. Very little boobs, and I don't mean little in size. Just it was just a quick shot of boobs. It was from a distance. Maybe it was like a real long shot.
Yeah.
And it was none of the stars or the main actress or anything showed her boobs. But I was shocked. Even the cover is a little bit risque, if you will. There's the actual shot of the nakedness.
Yes, there is. But it's a very strange film. It was very
terribly dubbed in its own language.
Yes. Yes. So they ADR'd the entire film.
Yeah.
Poorly.
It's about a scientist and his nymphomaniac wife.
Correct.
Who go to an island. And what are they doing at that?
I mean, it's worth saying that within the first 5 minutes of this movie, there is a quasi-rape scene with a guy on the boat that they're traveling on. A guy who you assume is going to be a main character.
Yeah.
Turns out he's not. He's just the guy.
Or something.
He's just the guy that raped the girl on the boat before they got to the island.
Yeah.
And
great way to start a movie.
Yeah. And then it's slowly revealed that she, in fact, enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because she's a nymphomaniac. And just wants to have sex with everyone and everything.
And her husband is really okay with it. I mean, he's kind of down about it.
It makes a point to say that he's sort of upset about it.
But he still loves her.
But he feels that he can work through it because he still loves her.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, her husband, minimum 30 years older than her.
Yeah. And I think that's why he can work through it.
As well, yeah.
Because he's never going to get an erection again, so it really doesn't matter.
Really assumed that the relationship, when they are first introduced on the table, are father and daughter.
Yeah.
Because you don't immediately say, these two must be married. Right. But in the 1960s, people probably did. They probably did say that as soon as they saw this film.
Yeah, because he probably was secure, he was older, he had money, he probably had insurance. And with all that sex she was doing, she was probably catching all kinds of venereal diseases and stuff, which that insurance would take care of.
Exactly.
What was he trying to do on the island? Some sort of... he was trying to come up with some sort of medicine, or he was trying to observe... No, he was trying to find a new life form.
Yeah, he was searching for new...
And he found one.
Life, yeah.
Yeah, he found
trees that attack people.
Yeah.
It was a very... I mean, the special effects in it were very 1960s. They were not...
Yeah.
And they might have even been considered poor for the time.
Yeah. But it was ahead of its time because the main guy that invites them into their home, sort of their host, he is the main baddie. He's the main bad guy. But we're not supposed to know that. And what happens is there's an island of savages and sort of wild women, Filipino women, I'm saying. I could be wrong. Thailand, maybe. And basically they get tied to the crosses, and this giant beast with a huge schlong fucks them to death.
Essentially, yeah. That's essentially what happened. They sacrificed these women to this incredibly horny, nocturnal beast.
Which turns out to be the host.
Which turns out to be the guy who by the way, this is a very Jekyll and Hyde situation.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be a bad guy.
I don't even think he knows he is.
Yeah, now that you mention it, yeah, I don't think he really understands what's wrong with him at this point.
But I know there's a point. At one point, the wife, the nymphomaniac, actually gets tied to one of the crucifixes. Yeah. And she's one of the victims, and she enjoyed it a great deal. I thought that part was kind of wild for 1963. That she basically got fucked to death, and that's kind of how she wanted to go out.
Yeah. And then the husband, poor man's Vincent Price.
Yes.
I mean, he's essentially our hero in it, but there's no...
He has no redeeming value.
Yeah, there's no reason for us to say throughout the film that he is our hero.
He has this sort of lackadaisical attitude about everything.
Yeah. Well, no, there was a younger character who was supposed to be our hero, but he's so unimportant that we've both genuinely completely forgot about him until now. There is a younger guy.
The assistant.
Yeah, the assistant to the doctor.
Did she fuck him too?
Who falls in love with one of the native girls.
Oh yeah.
He is supposed to be our primary protagonist.
Yeah.
But we've literally forgotten about him until this moment, which shows how charismatic.
And wasn't there a nude scene also when she gets raped? Like they throw her to the ground and rape her? Or
the native girl?
Yeah.
It's framed well.
Yeah. But still rape in 1963, even for a exploitation film.
But we have to say, as a warning to our viewers, don't let everything we are saying about this film trick you into thinking that it is interesting.
Yeah.
It is not. It is not. It is not worth watching. Don't punish yourself. It's painfully boring.
Yeah.
And at some point, we will watch the other two to warn you about them. But it's going to take
a while for us to recover.
We're going to need a lot of motivation in order to watch it.
We have to decompress. I do remember it ending in a fireball.
There is a fire at the end. The cabin sets on fire.
Right. And the monster's inside?
Yes.
But are we 100% sure that the wife dies? Because I'm not.
Yes.
She does die?
Yes.
By
being raped by the monster and a tree.
Monster and a tree.
Yeah.
Prelude to Evil Dead.
Yeah. So that is Brides of Blood.
The first
film
installment.
We do not recommend,
no.
And we'll never watch again.
No.
So next up, we watched Abominable.
Which is pretty much what the movie is.
Which was pretty close. Which was just released by the MVD Rewind Collection on Blu-ray.
It's
again,
Rear Window.
It's Rear Window with a Sasquatch. And there's not much more to say about it than that.
Well, the guy who's in a wheelchair, he was in Seinfeld. You told me he was in NCIS or something like that?
Yes. Matt McCoy.
Okay, Matt McCoy.
Matt McCoy.
He played Lloyd Braun in Seinfeld in a few episodes.
But most people would know him as Steve Guttenberg's replacement in the Police Academy franchise, starting with Police Academy, Assignment Miami Beach. I'm somewhat ashamed that I know it that well. That I know the full subtitle of the fourth film.
You shouldn't be ashamed.
And I say replaced Steve Guttenberg, which is
you can't replace
Steve Guttenberg.
Come on, let's get real.
But he filled the role admirably. Admirably.
I said, "Look who's talking," but that's not.
That's not
John Travolta
and
the chick who
Christy Alley.
Yeah, the chick who ate Shelley Long.
Mm-hmm.
And he's crazy, right? Is he crazy? Or, I mean, he has a nurse, a male nurse with him at all times.
He has, I think he's being treated for depression because he's lost his legs.
I mean, I saw them, so he didn't lose them. I mean, they were all he had to do was look down. They were dangling right there underneath his kneecaps.
But again,
what an idiot.
This movie was hard to keep our interest early on. You think with the film quality and the special effects quality, this is a 90s B movie. It is not. The budget on this film must have been minimum because there was no filming locations.
No.
They filmed out in the woods and then they stayed at these two cabins the entire time. There was no real filming locations beyond that.
Yeah.
So you would think, oh, that's how they saved money for special effects.
No.
But there wasn't much put into the special effects. Although I would imagine the suit cost a lot of money because, I mean, it is an animatronic.
I think they actually used the suit that they used from the Patterson footage. What I will say about this movie is it did have a lot of promise. You have a guy who's suffering from depression, so he goes away to a cabin with his male nurse, who's kind of a fucking dick.
Yeah, bit of a dick.
And you have this guy, what's his name again?
Matt McCoy.
Matt McCoy. And he's a bit of a voyeur. He's got he's got nothing else to do. So he's looking out his window, and before he spots the Sasquatch or Yeti or whatever you want to call it, he sees a bunch of college girls, and you're thinking, this could be interesting, you know?
Yeah.
And it really never develops in a way that it could be interesting.
And the girls staying at the cabin next door behave in. They are clearly grown women.
Yes.
These are clearly women who are not in college. Like they don't. Everything about this says these are women in their 20s.
Yeah.
And yet they behave, and all of the setups are very stereotypical. Bad teenagers in a cabin.
Yeah.
For the weekend behavior, you know. They start sassing at each other badly.
Yeah.
They want to dance even though there's nothing, you know, because girls just want to dance to no music whenever they're with their friends in a cabin.
And they just want to have fun.
And they just want to, you know, it's so bad. It's really badly written. There's no other way around it. It's horribly written by a person who has never spent time with women.
Or watching a film. I don't even
only exclusively watched films, and that's how they know women. They exclusively watched 80s slasher films.
Yeah. I do want to comment on something. There is a good scene in this. Jeffrey Combs is brilliant in this movie.
It is the scenes between Jeffrey Combs and Lance Hendrickson, which we hadn't even gotten into, where they are by themselves out in the woods hunting this thing, are really the only highlights of the movie. They're the only entertaining scenes.
They just had cameos, I guess, because maybe they couldn't afford them, but that's kind of weird because it seems like this movie would be a higher-rated movie. If the film would have focused around those guys, I think we would have had a hell of a movie here.
Way more entertaining.
And the disappointing part, like when we talk about the girls in the cabin adjacent to his cabin, is that I don't think they ever even mention one of their names. That's how undeveloped they are as characters. I don't think there's like a Judy or a Nancy.
I think they do it like when you first meet them, they mention their names, and it is that stereotypical. It's like, Judy, Stacy, Tiffany.
Yeah, come here. What is it, Tammy?
Yeah, it's really bad. The characters in it are really badly written, and obviously the scenes between Jeffrey Combs and Lance Hendrickson, they were given a little bit of control over their scene.
Yeah, they ad-libbed. And it was great. It was brilliant.
Literally, in this monster movie, the most interesting scenes are the talking scenes between Jeffrey Combs and Lance Hendrickson.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And it was so good that I wish there was so much more of it, because I could have watched that all day. Just them talking is far superior to this guy looking out a window at a supposed Sasquatch.
Yeah.
At one point, the male nurse tries to drug him, and somehow he, without legs, reverses the syringe on the guy and injects him, and the male nurse passes out. I'm not sure if he lives or dies. I remember him passing out, but I don't remember him being torn apart or anything.
Which character?
The male nurse, the caretaker.
Oh yeah, he's dead.
Okay.
For sure. The ending, as I said, is really terrible. It's what I affectionately refer to as the Predator 2 ending, where after this whole movie they've been fighting this one creature, they kill it at the end. The final shot is the reveal that there's dozens more of these out in the woods, looking down on the police officers in the woods, and then roll credits. And it's the worst Photoshop.
It's so badly done, and you're really giving it more credit, because you're making it sound like there's a bunch of creatures looking down. All it is just a couple red dots multiplied by 20.
Yeah, it's really just bad Photoshop in the tree line.
Yeah, it's just red eyes.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's just...
Oh, if it had just been red eyes, it might have looked good, but it isn't. It's like they just took a picture of the one,
multiplied,
glowed its eyes red, and then multiplied it along the thing. Because you can see
a silhouette.
You can see the teeth and all that.
Like, I don't ever see the teeth.
Yeah, you can see the teeth on some of them. Yeah, it's bad.
And that's the Photoshop part we were talking about. It's not even CGI.
Yeah, no.
They're not even moving things.
No.
They're not moving entities.
It's just
a copy and paste.
Yeah, it's bad. That's it. Abominable.
Which is unfortunate, because this is developing to be a really good line.
Yeah. The MVD Rewind collection is so far put out some really great stuff. This is one, again, I'm glad I have it. I want to have this whole line. But as compared to the other films in this series that I've watched so far, this one was kind of a bummer. And I have to say the reason that it's part of the line is just because it was easy to get the rights to.
Yeah.
And
it's probably the worst Sasquatch film I've ever seen. There's not a lot. Like there's The Legend of Boggy Creek, I would say, is better than this. Even Return to Boggy Creek is probably better than this. Yeah. And the movie Yeti, the 70s film, was probably better than this.
But yeah, I mean, again, worth watching for the scenes featuring horror legends Jeffrey Combs and Lance Hendrickson. Not much beyond that.
Pumpkinhead and
Pumpkinhead, Reanimator, dozens of films.
Go on and on, yeah.
For Jeffrey Combs and Lance Hendrickson.
Yeah.
We could list horror.
They owned the 80s, basically. Yeah, I mean, when it came to horror.
So, on to our next film, our most recent viewing.
My least favorite.
Really?
Yeah. I'd rather watch Brides of Blood again.
See, I wouldn't. I actually liked this to a degree.
To a degree. I loved the last 10 minutes.
Was Society, directed by Brian Usna, who was a producer on the Reanimator films. This was his directorial debut, I believe. But the film itself, well, hit us with the plot, James.
Well, first off, I want to say that this film desperately wants to be David Lynch. It wants to be Blue Velvet. It wants to be Twin Peaks. It wants to be Naked Lunch. It wants to be weird. It wants to be intentionally weird. And I hate that. If it's weird, that's great. But if you set out to make an intentionally weird film, it feels forced upon you. The story is, oddly enough, a lot like A Catcher in the Rye. It's about a teenage kid who's, in his early 30s. And his family is wealthy, but he feels like an outsider, just like Catcher in the Rye. And he sort of rebels against his family, but he has a good reason to rebel against his family, because his family are a member of a group called the Society, which they explain are not aliens, even though they have been around as long as humans. And they are sexual deviants, just for starters. They are shapeshifters. And this movie sounds great. Unfortunately, all this stuff happens in the last 10 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
The last reel. The entire 80 minutes leading up to this is a casserole of nonsense. It's confusing. It's boring. It's slow-paced. Nothing happens.
Yeah, nothing really interesting happens through the vast majority of the film, and it leans really hard on being set in the 80s, which makes it all the more weird, which I realize a lot of these high society practices still exist even today, but it feels like this film would have worked so much better if it had been set in the 50s, even going back to something like the 20s. It would have been a much cooler, much more unique film, and would have made more sense. Whereas much of it feels really out of place in the 80s, especially considering, as I said, how hard they lean on the fact that this takes place in the 80s.
Yeah, and really, if you want to do a David Lynch type piece, you have to have some acting chops. And this relied heavily on acting, and
Didn't have people who could really deliver.
No, they couldn't pull it off.
I will say most of the like the villains, basically, who were all revealed in the final 15 minutes, they were all pretty good. Like the senator and the judge, they all
Shrink was great.
They sold
too.
it.
Yeah, the Shrink was pretty fun.
The Shrink was all right. The Sink, you know the Sink.
Yeah,
that was
everything but the kitchen.
Some of the acting by that Sink was,
I gotta tell you,
just magnificent.
Yeah.
So. But I felt some of the people who were kind of revealed at the end, like the senator and the judge, they really sold it. They really did it well.
Yeah.
But all of our leads just did not have it. They were people clearly hired as a result of being
Uncle Jesse.
Very pretty people, yes.
I like to say that this is the prequel.
Yeah.
To what's the?
I mean, starring John Stamos.
Yeah. What's the show called? I can't remember what the old.
John Stamos' far less talented cousin, because I will never say that John Stamos is untalented.
Well, no. Look, I mean.
He is a thespian of the highest order.
Look who he fucked.
The Man?
No.
What?
No, John Stamos.
Oh.
Nightcrawler.
He fucked Alan Cumming?
The X-Men character.
Rebecca Romaine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stamos.
She wasn't Nightcrawler.
What is she?
Mystique?
She had a lot of mystique about her, yes, but what was her name?
Yeah. Okay. So, since we've done a review of John Stamos, let's get back to Society.
Why not?
But yeah, the guy does look like a very young, not good at acting John Stamos. I mean, there's very pretty people in the movie. That's clearly what they were focused on, getting people as pretty as they could to be in this film.
And my favorite line of the film is, would you like some tea? Sure.
Yeah.
Would you like sugar, cream, or would you like me to pee in it?
And delivered so, I mean...
Casual.
I say the acting isn't great, but the delivery of that line, I think unintentionally, as nonchalantly as she did it, is...
It worked. She was one of the best parts of the movie. And this, let's see, there's incest.
Oh yeah,
alluded incest.
This movie very much plays on the EU factor of taboo, of incest, of inbreeding in high society.
Bugs. Lots of bugs and worms. And
yes.
But the transformation scenes in the last 10 minutes, that was some of the best practical effects I've ever seen on film.
Yeah, the final 15 minutes of this film is fantastic. It is one of the better final 15 minutes I've seen in an 80s horror film.
And yeah, I would compare the special effects in this to actually The Thing. I mean,
they were really great special effects, and it's just, we're not selling it enough. The last 15 minutes is just non-stop special effects and insanity.
It's epic, and if it had been sort of feathered out throughout the entire film, instead of just that one final scene, then I think it could have kept my interest. But it's the 80 minutes of nothing leading up to that final scene that I just couldn't deal with.
I wouldn't say it's as extreme as Dead Alive, but the final 15 minutes, the transition is comparable to that.
What's
and
the
where
running
it goes
time?
from a film that seems like it's a very slowly paced horror film to just 15 minutes of insanity.
I can't see the running time.
But for that reason alone, I love it. 99 minutes.
Okay, so
it's really
80 minutes of nothing.
15, 20 minutes of it.
80 minutes of nothing, and 19 minutes of complete whacked out craziness.
Yeah, and it really, I mean, for me,
you have to own it just for that.
That was enough to make me glad that I own it and that I've seen it. And I will sit through the whole film to show people again, just so we can go through that final 20 minutes. And
yeah, there's human asshole. There's people sticking their fist in people's anuses and having their hands come out of their mouth.
Yeah, there is a literal orgy of gore that takes place throughout this entire 20-minute sequence.
I mean, it didn't look like they were sexually aroused by what they were doing all that much. You know what I mean?
No, they looked like they were hungry and ravenous, but they were naked and having sex.
Kind of. I mean, I really don't remember anyone really actually having sex.
Yeah, true. I mean, maybe they weren't, but they were certainly implying it.
So, the society, members of the society can live for a long time.
Yes, assuming. Because they literally
feed off
of the poor.
Yeah. Basically, you could say this is a...
It's the metaphor of the whole film. Yeah. The rich feed off of the poor.
Yeah, it's a metaphor for reality, for the times that we live in, especially now.
Well, at all times, technically. But,
yeah.
But, yeah, that was clearly the message of the film.
But the senator, at the end, he's like... Of course, it has to be one of the most used lines in the history of film. I'm getting too old for this shit. Which I thought was odd, because they're supposed to stay, fairly young forever.
Yeah. But I thought it makes sense, because, as I told you at the moment, I don't think that was a line in the film. I think that was just that actor talking to the director.
Yeah, he couldn't do it anymore. I'm tired, man. I'm tired. I need a break.
And they used it in the film. But yeah, so that's it. That's Society. I would highly recommend watching it. Again, purely based off of where the insane train ride of this movie goes. It is available on Blu-ray from Arrow Video. Anybody who knows us know we love Arrow Video.
I have a different version.
We'll support them. Yours is an import.
Yeah.
So.
I have a different version, which I'm sure the transfer is not as good. Arrow always delivers on the special features, of course.
Right.
And they're either one or two when it comes to companies out there.
Yeah.
Maybe, them and Criterion, I think.
Their transfers are always
top notch.
The best of any of the movies.
And they have more special features than anybody except for perhaps maybe Criterion.
Yeah.
But Criterion doesn't deal mainly in the kind of films that we enjoy. They dabble in horror and stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, full disclaimer, Arrow is not a sponsor. They don't send us anything for free. We just
Love
really
Arrow.
do like arrows, and they really are the best quality. We've compared them to other releases of movies from other companies, and the
Underground,
Arrow is always the better version.
Umbrella. Yeah, this is
So
always
that's
the
why
best
we
transfer.
always recommend it to people. So, just felt it was worth saying. But that is...
I would own it too, by the way. I mean, I do own it. So.
You do.
But I would not. I would watch the last 15 minutes again for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I can't do the first 80.
So that is this episode. Please, oh please, if you liked this episode, or if you have any recommendations for movies for us to watch, or things you want us to review or talk about, please put it in the comments below.
Or just send us the movies.
Or in a less desperate and greedy plea, just let us know what movies to watch. Odds are we already have them.
Yeah.
And we will do a review of them. If you don't care, then don't write anything. Don't be a dick.
Don't write first. Please.
Well, I mean, it's not 2003.
I know, that's why I don't want them to write it.
It's not 2003, and this isn't a Yahoo News article.
It's... Where am I? What's happening here?
So please, don't be a dick. But if you want us to watch a movie, let us know in the comments. We'll watch it, and we'll give a shout out to you when we do, for recommending it.
I mean, we're going to be watching a movie anyway.
And that'll make you borderline famous. All 12 to 13 people who watch our videos will know your name.
Yeah, you'll be walking with your feet off the ground for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Just that your name came out of our mouths.
We'll see you next time, guys.